So many times when we're picking out fish to add to our tanks, we steer clear of all of those species that are labeled as semi-aggressive or aggressive. We don't want those, but what if we did? All right, today in this video, I've got a list of all sorts of species of fish that are labeled as aggressive, in case you were looking to make a tank with some really cool fish. Hi there, I'm Hillary for Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. As promised, today I have a list of fish that are considered to be aggressive or semi-aggressive. A good bit of them are not considered to be reef safe. With that being said, I want to urge you to please always do your research before you purchase and add any fish, corals, other invertebrates to your tank. I'm going to try and go through a lot of the information today, but I might miss something, which is why it's important for you to do research on your own. So let's go ahead and get started. The first group of fish that are on my list today are groupers. Now, while groupers aren't going to be actively chasing other fish around the tank or nipping, biting at fins, they do a bit more damage than that. They actually will eat anything that can fit in their mouth. Now, typically when you see these guys at local fish stores or online, they're pretty small looking. You would think, oh, they're not going to eat anything. But as they grow, so does the size of their mouth and anything that can fit in it, which is why I would put them on this list of aggressive fish. Okay, moving on to the second fish on my list. And really, I should have just made this a whole category because I've got more coming, but that would be a domino damsel. I don't know what it is about these guys, but every time I've seen them in a tank, they are always not only harassing other fish, but they'll chase after hands. They're very territorial little fish, as you probably could say that a lot of damsels are. All right, the third species on my list. This one isn't one that I see in home aquariums, but occasionally I see them pop up, and that is a pineapple trigger. Sometimes I hear them called queen triggers, whatever you want to call it. I gotta say, this is one of the most aggressive fish that I have ever seen. Sometimes you can spot them in videos with scuba divers and they are just actively coming off the reef, chasing scuba divers' fins. We used to have them when I worked at the public aquarium, and they were always going after your hands, biting your fingers, biting your tools. So if you are considering a pineapple trigger, just be mindful and know what you're getting yourself into. Okay, I promised you more damsels on this list. Number 4 is a blue damsel. I've actually got one in this tank. It's the smallest fish that I have right now, and it is the most aggressive, constantly going after other fish, biting and nipping them, chasing them off. They're very territorial, like most of the damsel species that you are familiar with. So, if you want something that's got a lot of color and a fierce little attitude, maybe consider getting yourself a blue damsel. Another fish that is technically classified as a damselfish, that would be the maroon clownfish. I'm sure you've heard the stories of clownfish going after and drawing blood as they bite you when you're trying to clean while they're protecting their territory. Well, maroon clowns are some of the largest species of clowns, and they definitely fit the bill for an aggressive fish. So if that is what you're looking for, a proud fish to guard its anemone, maybe a maroon clown is something that you need in your tank. So sticking with reddish colored fish, the 6th species on my list that I've got for you today is a flame hawk. Now personally, I love flame hawks. I love their kind of grumpy personality, and you wouldn't think that they are that aggressive, considering they spend a lot of their time just perched on the rockwork, watching and observing everything go down. However, you can ask numerous people that will tell you these guys, when no one is paying attention, will go after invertebrates in the tank, especially some of your ornamental shrimp, which is why they've landed themselves on this list of aggressive fish. Moving on, the 7th species on my list today is a queen angel. Now these are one of the species of larger angelfish. You've got the dwarfs and then you have the large ones, while the queen angel fits in that large angelfish category. Of all of them, I feel like this is one of the most aggressive that I've seen there. They do get fairly big, so it's not something that you commonly see in aquariums at home, but you do see them, especially in some of those larger tanks. Now, I have them here because, yes, they are aggressive, and I would consider them not necessarily safe with some of the other species that they could potentially be kept with in those larger tanks you see them in. For example, different elasmobranchs. If you have sharks in your tank, or if you have some of those small stingrays, these guys tend to be very aggressive and will poke and eat out eyes that are sticking up in the sand. So that is why they have landed themselves on this list of aggressive species. All right, moving on, the 8th fish on my list are actually more triggers. They're the smaller triggers. I would consider the Picasso trigger and the undulated trigger to be two different species that are fairly aggressive. Now, personally, I haven't kept a Picasso trigger that was all that aggressive in comparison to its tank mates, but I know a lot of people that have. And the undulated trigger is one. They're very curious fish, but with that curiosity, they can get bored and thus a little bit aggressive, which is why they're on this list. Now, the 9th fish on this list could also be put in that same category as curious that lends into aggressiveness, and that is the dog-faced puffer. It's another species that I really love and I adore them, but when they get bored, they can be mean. They can bite and go after other fish, nipping fins. They can nip corals. They're definitely not a reef-safe species. We actually had one when I was at the public aquarium when the divers would feed the stingrays for the showtime. This little pufferfish would bite at their fingers. If they didn't give him attention, he would go and dive into the food containers and steal all of the food. So definitely a very feisty, very aggressive fish, but if you have time to spend with them, they have a huge personality that you will be rewarded with as you provide them enrichment and entertainment. We are at number 10, and I'm sure you're wondering why I've left off a group of fairly aggressive fish, and that is the tangs. If you scroll through the forums, you can hear numerous people talking about how aggressive their tangs are, but aggressive tangs don't just end with the yellow tang. I would also consider the clown tang to be fairly aggressive, the sohole tang, very aggressive, Achilles tang, the gem tang, purple tang. I could go on. Even the powder blue tang, powder brown. It's amazing that fish that are herbivores, you would think that they would be so much more peaceful, but these guys have a huge personality and tend to be aggressive. Now, a lot of them are reef safe, so that's good that you could have them in the reef tank, but you wouldn't want to put them with a bunch of peaceful fish, especially fish that are smaller than them that can't hold their own. So, hopefully I have given you a whole list of different aggressive fish that you could add to a tank if you're looking for some of that bold, feisty personality when it comes to fish. That is going to conclude my list of fish species, but I'm going to give you one bonus invertebrate that is considered aggressive, and that is the white-spotted hermit crab. I've seen them more and more. They're gaining in popularity. I've had one for several years now, and he is so much fun to watch. He's in a Fowler tank. He is really fascinating. He tries to climb out of the tank all the time, and he is super aggressive. So if you're looking for an interesting species to keep and you've got some extra space, well, maybe consider one of these hermit crabs or one of the other fish that I've got on my list today. I'm curious to know, have I included your favorite aggressive species? Leave a comment, let me know what it is, or if I have left it off my list. Maybe I can make a part 2. All right, this has been Hillary for Waterlogged on behalf of saltwateraquarium.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.